If you're a logical thinker who dreams of becoming more creative, we're more similar than you realize, because I was in that same boat and I thought that that would never change until recently. Because around 3 months ago, I became determined to use my analytical thinking as a tool to increase my creativity. So I learned the science behind creativity, practical tips to increase it, and my own system to actually produce more creativity on demand. And now I'm literally training my brain on structured thinking with creative processes involved. So in this video, I'm going to share with you all the science, all the tips, and my own proven system to help you become more creative. But before we can start talking about the system I use, there's some science you need to understand about creativity. Now, most people are able to recognize when they find something that is truly creative, but they don't have a specific definition for what creativity is. Now, personally, I think creativity is the combination of different ideas to create something new, unique, and useful. But another way you could look at creativity is the physical manifestation of someone's imagination. If I have something in my head, let's say a brand new tech product, I truly don't believe it's creative until I make it happen in the physical world. Until then, it's just my imagination and it's just an idea. But creativity is bringing those two worlds together and actually physically manifesting imagination and unique ideas. Now let's get into the science of creativity. So it all happens in the same subset of neural connections inside of your prefrontal cortex. Now every single person has this subset of neural connections, but actually activating them is a whole nother beast. That's why some people are really good in certain domains like art and music, but can't bring that same level of creativity to something different. So a great musician is not always a great artist, even if they both are very creative individuals. Researchers and studies have both proven that there is two main types of thinking when it comes to generating new ideas: convergent thinking and divergent thinking. Now, convergent thinking is taking ideas and items in the real world and combining them to create something unique and useful for everyone. This will help you complete tasks. So when your boss gives you certain metrics that need to be hit, you can find tasks that fit those metrics, but you may not be necessarily thinking out of the box with that. The convergent type of thought process is something that takes existing items, combines them to reach a desired solution. But divergent thinking is taking one idea or item and associating different meanings and stories along with it. I loved one example by Andrew Huberman where he discusses a Banksy painting of a dog peeing on a fire hydrant. Now, this image is not desirable or unique. Everyone has seen a dog pee on a fire hydrant, whether it be in person or on a TV show. This is a common symbol that we all know about. When you combine that with the artwork of Banksy and a 2D image being painted in a 3D landscape, it gives a whole new meaning to the dog peeing on the fire hydrant. And just from one image, we can all make a connection to a story or a life to that image because we've seen that happen before, and the creativity in our mind diverges off and creates its own story. But divergent thinking isn't only present in art, it's also present when your boss gives you an open-ended question like, we want to increase workers' productivity. You can find a solution in about a million different ways, and regardless of how you do it, it'll bring you to an increase in productivity. So when you're trying to solve a problem, keep those two types of thought processes in mind. If you find yourself thinking very convergently of combining different ideas to create something new, maybe look at it in a divergent way. Think of a bunch of different out-of-the-box ideas and then kind of narrow them down to find the best solution for yourself. Because creativity is an actual skill that can be honed and developed as time goes on. So just make sure that you're actively pursuing different types of thought processes to actually challenge yourself to become more creative. But here are some practical tips you could put in today to unlock the right creative side of your brain. Practical tip number one is find the right medium. So I never thought of myself as a creative person because I can't draw at all. And I would always put myself in the box of someone who's not creative because I absolutely hated drawing. But when I turned about 14, I started messing around with web development and realized maybe I did have a passion for creating things and learning how different pieces can be put together to create my own puzzle. Musical artists also find a way to paint an image and portray emotion through the sounds they use in their specific songs. Just like how photographers use framing, composition, and color to portray specific emotions they want the viewer to feel. Those are two completely different mediums, but they're both creatively challenging and can invoke an emotion in the viewer or listener. So don't limit yourself on what you think creativity actually looks like. Find something that inspires you and encourages you to keep doing it and keep developing and becoming more creative progressively. Because if you find the right medium and you can truly figure out exactly what you want to create, then you can worry about how you're going to get to do it. Which is practical tip number two. Learn through mimicry. Take courses, look at art that inspires you, watch YouTube videos. You just need to consume. Get as much information, inspiration, and ideas that you could possibly summon in your one being. Now, that's obviously a little bit dramatic, but you need to find inspiration through little things in your daily life. So anytime something creates a feeling for you of emotion or inspiration or ignites a little creative flame inside of you, write it down inside of your notes app or a journal. After a while, you're going to have a very long list of different things that inspire you, and from this list, you can figure out what exactly you want to create and how you're going to get there. And once you have that list put together, begin trying to recreate what's on there so you can continue developing your skills. Now, do not go marking this work as your own. It's obviously not, so don't try to sell it and don't try to provide it as a service. This is just a time to develop yourself and learn new things and new applications of ideas that you want to create. Eventually, after copying other people's things, you'll have the fundamental skills to create something that's truly your own. And now we need to cover practical tip number 3. Nothing is actually original. So everything is just a recreation or a unique imagination of a bunch of different ideas combined. So earlier when I touched on divergent and convergent thinking is not the only one that is creative. Convergent thinking can be creative if you take ideas from different realms and domains and combine them to present them in a unique way that's never been done before. And by doing that, you steal like an artist, which is the title of the book by Austin Kleon, and there's 2 main principles you need to understand. Number 1 is do the work you wish to see. Don't wait on other people to create projects or ideas that you have inside of your head. Go out and do it yourself. You owe it to yourself to have the things that you truly desire out in the world. So go create them yourself and present them to other people who also may find them just as desirable. Number 2 is that limitation is the enemy of creativity. What he means by this is if you are constantly putting limits upon yourself and you don't try to expand your wealth of knowledge, you're never going to create new things or new ideas. If you don't have a bunch of different sources to pull your ideas together from, how are you ever going to generate something that is unique and never been done before? So with limitations, you're not allowing yourself to experiment and learn new things that you may have never thought about before. You're going to reduce your consumption and eventually reduce your inspirational intake. You also need to avoid limiting beliefs like, wow, this is a great idea, but why has no one else done this? There's got to be a reason behind it. If you allow those thoughts to creep into your mind every time you think of something great, you're never going to actually act on it and create it in this world. And those are all the practical tips from Austin Kleon and myself about how to develop your creativity. So now I'm going to share with you my step-by-step creative system that I put in place to allow myself room to become more creative. Step number 1 is journaling / brain dumping. Now, whenever new ideas start to foster inside of my head, the first thing I do is grab my phone's notes app and I start typing out every single word that comes into my mind. I don't worry about punctuation or correct grammar or making sure everything aligns and makes sense. I just dump out all my ideas onto one page that I can look back at later. And I do this through making room for boredom. So I allow myself to be bored throughout my day. I go on walks without any music in, or I work out with no music or no podcast on. I'm an information junkie, so that is super difficult for me to do. But when I do it, I notice the best ideas start to get formulated in my head because I have nothing else to think about. Then once I have all those ideas just kind of plastered everywhere on my phone or in my notebook, I get to step number 2, which is the organization of these ideas through an actual refined notebook or template and flashcards. So step 2 is where I actually begin penciling out the specific details of the ideas that spawned inside my head. So like for example, in this video, I wanted to make something that myself in 8th or 7th grade would have found interesting and actually useful to develop creative skill. Because I was someone who's a super logical left brain thinker and I've always wanted to be more creative, but I just never knew how. So that rough idea of wanting to make a guide for my younger self turned into the video that you're watching right now. But it didn't just appear like that. I had to go through step 2 and pencil out every single detail of what I was going to exactly talk about and the feasibility of if I even could talk about it. A lot of times there is great ideas, but there's just no way to actually accomplish them, so you have to kind of put them to the side. So step number 3 is bringing these ideas to life through structured thinking with creative processes. Now there's 2 types of main thinking I do. There's hard thinking and then there's long thinking. Hard thinking is in short time spans where you're crunching a lot of cognitive ability at once. So this could be something like specifically working on the hook for this video. That's going to take a lot of focus and a lot of ability in a short time span. However, long thinking is more like editing or allowing myself room to breathe on creative opportunities. Because as much as I don't like it, and I'm sure you don't either, creativity does take a long time to foster. You have to let ideas sit there and allow new ones to sprout out of it. It can be a little bit scary to think of an idea, brain dump on it, and then organize it, and then just let it sit there. But sometimes that time can be like a nice marinade on top of a chicken. It's gonna bring out all the flavor and everything you need to actually make it delicious. So make sure you're mixing in hard and long thinking to actually make your creative ideas come to life. And that's kind of my 3-step process, but there's one last thing you need to understand if you truly desire to become more creative. Creativity is a habit. It's an active choice to try to think of new ideas or consume new things and bring them together in a unique way. But over time, you have to truly believe that your creative taste will continue to develop, your skills will continue to improve, and eventually you will make creative projects that you are extremely proud of. As long as you continue doing everything I shared with you in this video, you will gradually become more creative. So create your own system, whether based on mine or something else you found, it doesn't matter. Just find something that works for you that you could do every single day. And if you're looking for other ways to improve outside of just your creativity, I just dropped a guide on how to completely transform your life in under 6 months. So you should go check out that video now.